The Elektron Octatrack 2 has been on my radar for a very long time now. As a person who has owned a Teenage Engineering OP1 and a Synthstrom Deluge, and who now owns a Dirty Wave M8, all the Poly-N boxes and a Teenage Engineering OPXY, I can tell you that I thought long and hard before I bought this device in case it would be something I wouldn't take to. I changed my mind so many times as I worked my way through literally hundreds of videos on YouTube, but eventually I decided to see for myself what all the fuss is about. I'm glad I did. So far I haven't been disappointed, and I can tell you that although it is very deep, it's perfectly possible to get familiar with it to the point where you can use all the main features in just a few days. Having said that, in the time I've owned it, I've put some serious hours into learning it, and I've had a few nights where sleep was slow to come as I pondered over questions I had. It's a very enjoyable and satisfying device to operate. I've decided to make a series of videos for beginners where I go over all the main features slowly without assuming any prior knowledge. My goal when I make my tech videos is to provide something that I look for when trying to learn a device from scratch. Hopefully in these videos you will find all the answers you need to get you up and running with the Octatrack 2 within a few days. These videos will be perfect for you if you are an absolute beginner or simply someone who is contemplating buying one. I often watch videos about gear I don't own and I find them very enjoyable. Don't be afraid of the Octatrack. You may not be the next EasyBot. I'm sure I'll never be as skilled as he is on this device, but if you follow this course you will end up feeling confident with the machine and be able to make music on it. There are lots of amazing videos on YouTube by people like EasyBot. What I'm bringing to the table is a kind of dumbed down set of tutorials where I show you all the basics. Once you've learned these, you'll be able to go on to do amazing stuff with this device and take advantage of all those advanced technique videos I mentioned. I honestly think that with this machine you have to learn to walk before you can run, and that's where I come in. Just as a side note, my Octatrack 2 was used, so I saved myself quite a few £100s. I would have liked to have bought a new one, but funds simply would not stretch to that, particularly as I've just bought a new OPXY. I'm told that the Mk.II Octatrack is basically the same machine with a few less buttons. I certainly like the look of the two more than the one, but if money is tight, I think a good used Octatrack 1 will do just fine. If you're using my videos and you've got an Octatrack 1, you'll simply have to do some things slightly differently to me because of the difference in the layout of the buttons. I have heard that the buttons on the 1 don't feel as nice as those on the 2, but if you've never owned either machine, I'm sure you'll be fine with the Mk.I. The first thing we're going to do is to look at the contents of my compact flash card on my computer. The compact flash card lives in a slot at the rear of the device here where it says compact flash. The way we see the compact flash card's contents on the computer is by plugging in a USB cable here and plugging the other end into a computer. I found out by a process of trial and error that using my Mk.II, my more modern Mac computer, doesn't work very well with this because for some reason the computer won't eject the disk. It does sometimes, but more often than not it doesn't, and then I have to force eject, and that obviously worries me because it can cause data corruption. So I tend to plug my Octatrack into my old MacBook Pro. This is a 2014 machine, so pretty old, and that way I can see the drive on my screen and I can eject it afterwards. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we press Proj over here, Project. So I come down one with the down arrow to System, come over one with the right arrow, USB disk mode is highlighted, I press the Yes button, and then it says USB disk access is now enabled, eject safely using your computer OS. So now on my computer we can see my card and we can have a look at the contents. If you look on your computer's desktop, you should see the Octatrack as an external drive. Mine's labelled Octatrack 1. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe my compact flash card was used in a Mk.I version of the device, or it was the first of many cards the previous owner used. I've no real clue on that, but never mind. So I'm going to double click this and it's going to open up and we'll see what's inside. So what you can see here are the contents of my card, a few folders there and some little text files. Let's try and understand this, shall we? Now my card's a 32GB card, but I know that you can have larger cards like 64GB. The card has to be formatted for use with the machine, but don't format yours as you'll lose everything on it. This is only if you buy a new card for use with the device. On my card you can see a folder called Mk.II Video at the top here. This was a set I made to go with the tutorial course I bought from Mk.II Video, and I'll explain the word set in a moment. Then you can see a folder called Presets. This is the main set I use on my Octatrack. I think that this is the set that comes with the machine from the factory. Then you can see a number of text files. These show errors that happen with various projects before my time and since I've owned the machine. I'm not quite sure why we get these errors, but we do from time to time. I very quickly learnt to save new versions of my project with a different name so that I could go back if I had an error come up. It's normally a pass error that comes up. Let's have a look inside this presets folder. Now, like I said, that presets folder is a set. So the set is, if you like, at the top of the hierarchy, and it contains everything you need for a project, or if you like, a song. Inside this set is the audio pool, labelled audio. Let's click on that. And I've got a bunch of sample folders. Let's open one up here, Nord drum. I've got hi-hats in here and kicks, and you can see these are all WAV files. Okay, so I've got some loops here inside this samples from Mars folder. So these are loops, not single shots, not one shots as we call them. So basically in this audio folder, in this audio pool as we call it, I've got loads and loads and loads of samples that I can use in my projects. And it's a really good idea to load lots of your own samples into this so that you've got plenty of choice when you want to start doing your project. Obviously you can always load samples in as and when you need them. So you use these samples as your sound source when you're making music with the Octatrack. Every set must have its own audio folder which contains the samples used by that set, the audio pool. So if I go to this Mk.II Video folder, there's my audio folder for that, and inside that I've got my samples that I used for that particular project, and I used this when I was learning from my Mk.II Video course that I bought. So each song is called a project, and I've got a few projects here. There's project 1, new song, etc. These projects live inside the set along with the audio pool, the audio folder. All projects in this particular set, which is called presets, use the same audio pool. They glean samples from this audio folder. You can add your own samples to the audio pool by making folders inside it and copying your own samples into those folders, and that's what I did here. Inside the audio folder you can see I've got, well, actually quite a lot of mine. I've got Les samples, that's me. These are some that I've added, and down here my splice samples. I bought a lot of excellent samples from Dean at Electronic Sounds. You get the picture. So that's what you use for your sound source, the audio pool. So every time I want to do a new project, I could make a new set to put it in, but there's not much point really, because you'd have to make a new audio folder, an audio pool for that project inside that new set. You might as well just use the presets folder where all of the samples sit inside this audio folder. The operating system of the Octatrack lives inside the Octatrack itself. It's not on this compact flash card, you'll be glad to know. So, you can basically buy any number of compact flash cards and format them for use inside the Octatrack. Inside this audio folder you can see some resample files, and this is where I did some resampling in an actual project. I don't want to get into that now, but I will be explaining resampling a bit later on in the course. Notice this song has got various iterations: new song 2, new song 3, etc. And that bears out what I said earlier about making backups, if you like, of your project. If something went wrong with new song 8, I know that new song 7 was working, I could go back to it. Let's look at new song 8. You've got all these little files inside, arrangement files, bank files. Basically, don't touch these, don't delete any of them, otherwise it will mess your project up. These are tiny little files. I mean, this arrangement file here is 11 kilobytes. This bank file here is 636 kilobytes. They're tiny files, don't mess around with them. That's all that should be inside those project folders. Obviously the big files are inside the audio pool, inside the audio folder. So anyway, that's what our compact flash card looks like on our computer. Obviously, once you've got this card up on your computer, it's a really good idea to back up the entire thing to your computer's hard drive or an external hard drive, just in case you get any problems in the future. Under the project menu on the Octatrack 2, there is something called Sync to Card. Make sure you say yes to that before you take the card out. I'm going to show you now how to eject your compact flash card from the back of the Octatrack Mk.II and how to put it back again afterwards. Make sure the device is not plugged in or switched on. So there's a little button to the right hand side of the card. Here's the edge of the card. So you press firmly on that button, maybe brace the machine so it doesn't topple over, and then you see it pops out. So it's now protruding, I don't know, about a centimetre or so. Then you push it back in again, and now you see the card has popped up enough for you to just get hold of the end and pull out. So I've got this compact flash card reader out, and you put it in this way round. Just line it up, push it in. Then you put this into your computer. Probably best to put it into your actual computer rather than a USB hub. Then you'll see this card on your computer's desktop like an external drive, and you can look at the files and do what you have to. Then at the end you pull it out firmly, and then you put the card back in the machine, and there's nothing to do with the button when you put it back in. You simply line it up and push it in, and then you're good to go. And then you can plug it back in, boost it up, and everything will be fine. Let's start to understand the structure of a project now, or a song if you prefer that term. A project consists of 16 banks, A to P, and inside each bank you have 16 patterns. Patterns can be of different bar lengths and are where you record your steps, or trigs as Elektron call them, so that the sequencer has some notes to play. Each pattern has 8 audio tracks and 8 MIDI tracks. Each audio track has a machine assigned to it. It is possible to set track 8 up as a master track, but don't worry, I'll explain this later. These machines do various things, from playing back samples to allowing external gear to be plugged into the Octatrack, to live looping and much more. And don't worry, I'll explain all these terms as we go along. You know, machines and master tracks, all this kind of stuff. It will all be explained, don't worry. Also, inside each of the 16 banks, apart from the 16 patterns, you have 4 parts per bank. Now, this is where things get a bit complicated, but don't worry, I've figured all this out so I can explain it to you and you will understand it, I promise. So very briefly, before I get into this a bit deeper, parts are like patches on a synth. Each pattern in a bank is attached to one of the 4 parts in that bank. It's a bit confusing, isn't it? And I must admit, I really struggled with this at first, but I've got it now, so I will go into far more detail very soon so that you get it as well. Each part can have 16 scenes. These are what you need when you finally get to try this lovely crossfader here. I know you're dying to do that, but I'll go through this when the time is right. That's not now, as it will only confuse you. You need to think outside the box with this machine. When dealing with the Octatrack, you have to think differently. In the old days of drum machines and sequencers, and obviously I go back a long way to the 80s for this kind of thing, we made patterns from a few sounds and then changed those patterns to form a song, and that was it. With the Octatrack, it's not so straightforward, but infinitely more flexible. The first pattern in your song arrangement could be Bank A, Pattern 1, Part 1. Your second pattern could be Bank J, Pattern 15, Part 2, with a completely different set of samples assigned to your tracks. You have 2 sets of separate 128 slots for your samples in each project. One for all the static machines and one for all the flex machines in all banks. Static and flex machines are both used for playing samples. Again, I'll go into this in more detail. I know it's a lot of words, a lot of jargon, but don't worry. This is just a general overview. Like I've said, patterns are where we record the notes, steps, trigs if you like, for the Octatrack to play, but the parts dictate the sounds or samples those patterns play, together with all the machine assignments, effects, LFOs, parameters, etc. that are used by those patterns. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm doing a lot of talking, and this will be time-stamped so you can jump to the bits you want if you don't want to go through all this. Let me repeat myself a bit with some more maths. You have 16 banks in a single project, so that's 16 times 16 patterns. So that's 256 patterns per project, or song if you like. Each pattern can be up to 4 bars long, so that's 256 times 4, a possible 1024 bars of music per project. That should be more than enough for anyone, I would think. You have 4 parts per bank, so that's 16 times 4 parts per project, 64 parts per project. Each of the 8 audio tracks will behave differently depending on which machines have been assigned to them. Machine assignment to the audio tracks is dependent upon which part is being used by the pattern in question. And when I show you a practical example of this, this will become clearer. It's all very well talking about it, but you can't be actually doing it, can you? One thing is clear about this thing: patience is a virtue. You have to learn to be very patient with this device. Most experienced users say don't try and learn everything about the machine in one go, and they're absolutely right. I'm not going to show you what all these buttons and encoders, knobs if you like, do straight away. I think actually making a project is a much better way of doing this. I strongly suggest having your computer up and running and typing everything you do into a sort of self-manual. I always do this, and I can tell you it really pays off. So I've got a program called Pages, which is like the Mac version of Word, and I type everything I learn into that, and after a few weeks I've got a sprawling mess of notes which I reorder into some kind of manual that I can follow. I can't remember everything I learn as I learn it, so typing it into your computer is a great way of helping you do just that. So we need to think about monitoring, hearing the sound coming out of the Octatrack. The easiest way of doing this is to plug a pair of headphones into the headphone socket in the back here. Okay, or even better, I've got 2 jack plugs plugged into the main out and out of shot into my mixer, and I'm using a program called Reason at the moment on my Mac, just so I can hear the Octatrack going through my computer and into my audio interface so I can record this video. Just a word of caution: remember to be careful when using headphones. Turn the device down and gradually bring the level up. This knob on the top left here is for headphones only. I've got it turned down. Start with it down and gradually bring it up to a safe listening level. If you plug the machine into a sound system, you hold function and level to turn the level up and down. You can probably see that moving up and down. Notice it changes from level to main as I do that, and I'll explain that when we get into the tracks and the patterns. Here's a little tip before we go on. If you just turn an encoder like this, it changes in increments of 1. If you push down on it, it tends to go in 7s for some reason. I have no idea why it goes in 7s, but it does. Maybe that's a Swedish thing, but who knows. So push down and turn, and it jumps up and down in 7s. Just turn normally, and it goes up and down in increments of 1. Sorry about all the talking there, but I needed to kind of set the scene so that we get off to a good start and we kind of understand what we're doing. So it might be a good idea to turn this lesson off, go and make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and come back. I'm going to start making a new project now. So how do we make a brand new project and begin setting it up? When you turn your Octatrack on, it will boot up the last project you were working on. So if I press Proj here for project, you'll see at the top it says presets, new song 8. Presets is the name of the set, I'll talk about that in a minute, and the name of the song is new song 8. So that's the song that's booted up, because that was what I was working on last time. So we're going to make a new project. So I'm going to go into this first column here, which I'm in, going to go up, up arrow to project, and I'm going to come over to the second column here with the right arrow, and it's defaulted to change. We're going to change the project. So I'm going to say yes. Yes is kind of enter if you like. I'm just going to press the up arrow until it gets to the top, and when it gets to the top it says create empty project. So I'm going to press yes. Now we have a name for this new project. It's very catchily named Project 250609. It's named it that because today is the 9th of June 2025. I don't want that as the name of my project, so I'm going to change it, and I'm going to show you how I do it. You hold the Q button down, this button here, and no to backspace all those unwanted letters and characters out. So now the name of the project is blank. And then you hold the function button down, and now you've got the list of characters, and I'm sure you're going to figure this out for yourself, but you've got up, down, across, and choose your letters. Now I'm going to call this YouTube 1. I'm going to find capital Y. There we are. Now if you select it and let go, Y is in the display. Press func again, function. Now I want a small o, so I'm going to come down here. There we are, let go, and then we have U that we need, so over here. I'm going to have a capital T here because it's YouTube. So I'm going to come up. It's all one word, YouTube, isn't it? Let's go to a small u, and we need a small b, and e, small e. Right, that's the YouTube bit done. Now I want a space. Now all you've got to do is press the right arrow, and you've got a space. And I'll put in a number 1 here. So function, and down to 1. Right, so that's my new name of my new project. I'm happy with that. So I press yes. Creating new project, and it takes a little while, and that's done now. Good, so we now have a nice fresh new project in our Octatrack 2. If you press project again, you can just see at the top there it says presets. That's the name of the set this project is in, and it's called YouTube 1. So we'll press the project button again. If you ever want to get back to what you call the home page, just keep pressing no, it's on that already. It says disarm and arm, don't worry about that for the moment. So the first thing we want to do is create a pattern. I think the easiest way to make a start with this device is to load some samples in and create a very simple beat. When people make videos on this device, tutorials in particular, some people teach you how to record your own samples, some people teach you how to play back samples that you've loaded in. I'm going to do the latter thing there. I'm going to load some samples in and play them. I think that's by far the easiest way to make a start. And with everything you do with this machine, you learn as you go. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a pattern. Now by default, this will be Bank A Pattern 1 Part 1. If you look in the display here, about halfway down on the left, it says Part 1, and the name of that part is 1, O-N-E. You can change that if you want to. A little bit lower down, there's a little line there. There's no sample assigned to this yet. A01 is Bank A. Remember they had banks A to P, so it's Bank A. O1 is Pattern 1. So it's Part 1, it's Bank A, and it's Pattern 1. And the thing at the bottom that says SRC static means that we're on the source page and we've got a static machine in, and I'll explain that in a moment. Sorry I keep saying that, I will explain that in a moment, but there are things that are going to crop up and you're going to think, what on earth is that? Just rest assured I will go through it. I'm going to worry about the pattern bit of this first of all. We'll talk about the parts in a moment because that's a bit more complicated. A pattern consists of 8 tracks of audio and 8 tracks of MIDI. You can see the tracks here, T1, T2, T3, T4 on this side, and over here T5, T6, T7, T8. So those are your 8 tracks. I'm not going to use the MIDI tracks at the moment. I want to keep everything inside the Octatrack. Eventually I'll get to showing you the MIDI side of this, but for the moment we're going to be dealing with the audio tracks, the samples, if you like. Now we need to talk about machines. In general, each track has a machine assigned to it. If you look carefully, over on the left here you can see S, 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 and on the right S, 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 S. That S stands for static. So it's telling us that you have static machines assigned to all 8 tracks at the moment. Obviously we can change that, but we're going to leave it like that for the moment. Let me talk about the static machine for a minute. Now a static machine can load samples of up to 2 gigabytes, so you can have massive samples in that. So it can be used for playing huge files like backing tracks. Now there is a bit of a downside to using static machines, and that's because they stream samples off the card, not off the internal RAM. So because of that, they're slower and less efficient. Flex machines use samples that are loaded into the internal RAM from the compact flash card. So in other words, if you use a flex machine and you bring a sample into it, the sample is then loaded into the internal RAM for faster, more efficient access. Once you've saved a project with a flex track in it, the associated sample will be loaded into RAM when you load up the project. Bear in mind that the internal RAM of the Octatrack is only around 80 megabytes, so there's not a lot of room. Now all of the flex and static machines in a project have 128 slots where samples may be loaded. Let's make this clear to you because I didn't really get this. You have 128 slots for all the flex machines and a completely separate 128 slots for all the static machines in the project. So that's a lot of slots, isn't it, for samples? And these samples in these slots are used by all the patterns in any one project. I'll talk about the other 3 machine types as and when I need to. I don't want to muddy the waters just for the moment. So let's load a sample into the first track so we can start making music. If a track is lit red, it means it's in focus. So if I double tap this, you can see up the top there, machine static, and you've got the slots there, and number 1 is the first slot waiting for a sample to be loaded into it. Now, to make the Octatrack 2 look at your compact flash card for samples for this slot, press the right arrow, and now we're into our folders. So we're not seeing samples at the moment, we're seeing folders of samples. Now I happen to know that one I want is a kick drum in the Nord drum folder. I'm going to use the down arrow till I get to Nord drums. It's in alphabetical order. Nord drum, there we are. So I'm in the right folder, press the right arrow. Now I've got more folders: hi-hats, kicks, percussion, snares, toms. Let's go to kicks, right arrow again. Now you can see all these are .wav files, so these are all actual samples. Now the one I want is the very first one there, Nord kick 1.wav. Now if you want to hear what this sample sounds like, hold funk and the yes button, and you can hear the sound of that rather lovely kick drum. So yes, that's the one I want. So I'm going to press yes, and now you can see that that sample has gone into that slot 1, and the name scrolls so you can see all the characters. There's not that many for this one, but if it's a sample with a very long name, you'll get to see the whole name as the Octatrack makes that sample name scroll. Good, so we've got a sample into our first slot. Now we're going to press no to go back to our main view. There we are. Next thing we're going to do is hold funk and an up arrow so that we figure out how we're going to use the pads to play that sample. So funk and up. Now we've got this list of options here. We've got tracks, chromatic, slots, slices, quick mute, delay control. I want slots. Now you'll notice this first green pad, and if I press that pad, that's playing that sample. So we're doing well. We've got a sample in and we can play it using the pad there. These 3 buttons here in the middle are a little bit confusing. This one that says copy is actually the record button. If I press it, it goes red. You can see it's a typical record button. The one in the middle is the play button, and the one to the right is the stop button. Now these 3 buttons have a secondary function that we get by holding the function button down. The record button is also the copy, the play button is also the clear, and the stop button is also the paste button. So I'm going to press this record button here, and you can see that pad's gone out. Now the reason I've done that is to record this kick drum into the first step of the sequence. By default this is going to be a 1 bar pattern, not going to change that for the moment. Now with this record light on, I'm going to press this first pad again. It's lit up red, so I've entered that kick drum into that first step of the sequence, and if I press play, the sequence runs and the kick drum is played on the first beat of each bar. Brilliant. So we've got a single kick drum on the first step of the sequence. We've recorded our first note in 1 track of 1 pattern. It's a start, isn't it? So our record button is lit. Let's add some more trigs. We need to get used to using that word. I tend to call them steps. They're called trigs on the Elektron devices. So the record button is lit. If I press 5, 9 and 13, you can see what's happening here. I'm now going to have a 4 on the floor kick drum pattern. I've entered that kick drum sample onto steps 1, 5, 9 and 13, or I should say trigs 1, 5, 9 and 13. Press play. There's my pattern. Now if you press the play button to stop the sequence, and I press it again, you see it didn't start from the beginning. This play button, if you press it once the sequence is running, is a pause. See? So if you want to go back to the beginning after a stop, press the stop button, then press the play button, and it will begin from the start of the pattern. Right, now I'm not happy about the volume of that. It's pretty loud, isn't it? So if I rotate the level encoder, this one which is up here, I'll run the sequence so I can hear it. So watch the level just to the right of the beats per minute. See it go down, you can see the numbers, or I could push it in and it'll go down in 7s, up in 7s. So I'm going to bring it down to 100. So that's how to change the level of the track. Now I'm on track 1, remember, so I've changed the level of track 1 here. So let's understand what we're seeing in the display here. I'll set this rolling. I'm going to turn the record button off for the moment, so if I accidentally press any trigs, they're going to get recorded. So now we're back to this, where we just can play that sample in that first pad. So if I press play, I'm going to point out what we can see in the display here. Now it says slots here, that's the mode we're in for playing the pads. Underneath that you can see that little pulsing square there. Now we've got the pulsing dot here underneath the slots. We've got this running block here on every beat of the bar. We've got source, static machine, and I've already shown you that it was part 1. The name of the sample is now in the display, that null kick 1, and AO1 is bank A pattern 1. Up here you can see this 4-beat pulse underneath the tempo, and then we know we're running because it's got this flashing play button, and the static machine that's in focus, the one at the top for track 1, has got a play symbol. If I stop, that's now changed to just a square, and this is showing slots 1 to 16. At the moment we're using slot 1. Now obviously these other buttons here bring up other pages. I'm not going to get to that for the moment, I don't want to confuse you. Now like I said, this is part 1 we're using. I could change that name of that part, but I'm not going to just for the moment. I'll leave that to a bit later. If I press these other buttons here, we're on source at the moment. This is amp, this is LFO, and these are the 2 effects. But we'll leave it on source just for the moment because they all need explaining. As you can see, it's an awful lot to learn, but if we do it like this, bit by bit, you'll definitely get the hang of it. Let's load some more samples and record more trigs into different tracks. So let's press T2 for track 2. So we've now got track 2 in focus. We've got our track 1 done. Double tap it. Again, that's brought up the slots for the static machines. You can see that Nord kick drum is in slot 1, it's defaulted to slot 2, ready for a new sample. I'm going to press the right arrow. So I was in the kicks folder. I'm going to come out by pressing the left arrow again, and I want the Roland samples this time. There's the folder, press the right arrow to go into that. I want tape 909 folder. Okay, so down to that, right arrow. I want the snare drum, SD, right arrow, and the one I want is 909 SD. I've chosen the one I want, I press yes, and it's gone into slot 2 for the static machines. So I've now got 2 samples loaded into 2 slots. Press no to go back to the main page. Track 2 is in red, it's in focus, and with the record button unlit, you can see that pad 2 is now lit up. If I press that pad, there's my snare. If I press pad 1, there's my kick drum. So I've got 2 samples loaded in, and because I'm using the slots method of sounding the notes, I'm getting those sounds coming through. Right, so the kick is on pad 1, the snare is on pad 2. Press the record button, the copy button if you like, to make it go red. Now I can enter in some snares. I'm going to put this snare on 5 and 13. I'm sure you were way ahead of me there. Now if I press play, I've got my 4 on the floor kick drum and snare on beats 2 and 4, Trigs 5 and 13. Let's add a hi-hat on track 3. So press T3, track 3 is now in focus. Double tap it in fact. Slot 3 is ready to go. Press the right arrow. Now the left arrow will go up to Roland hi-hats. We want tape 909, HH909. So we'll use this one here at the top. Very top one, let's listen to it. Yep, nice crisp hi-hat. We'll say yes. Now it's gone into slot 3 of the static machines. Press no to go back to the main view. If I turn off this record light, you'll see I've now got 3 pads lit. There's my hi-hat, there's my snare, there's my kick drum. So hi-hat's there. Press the record button so it goes red. Now I'm going to press all the odd numbered pads, so I put that hi-hat in as a typical quaver pattern. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. Press play, and then we have a very basic drum pattern. Good, so we've done well. Now at this point it's a good time to save. If I switch the machine off at this point, when I turn it on again it should come back to this, but I don't like to take any chances, so I'm going to save what I've done as we get to the end of this first tutorial. So I'm going to press project button, proj here. Projects come up there, that's where it was from the last time I used this. I'm going to come over to the right column, which I'm already on, drop down to save. Now save to new. I won't do that for the moment because if I lost this it wouldn't be a nightmare, I'd quickly get it back. So I'm going to leave this on just straightforward save. I'm going to press the yes button and then watch what happens on the display. Any previously saved state will be lost, that's fine. Say yes, saving project, and now it's done and we're all warm and toasty. We've got our first set of 3 samples in and a pattern. It's probably a good idea to keep turning that record light off, because if you touch any of these pads while that's on, you might inadvertently record a trig in that you don't want. So make that go out, press play, and that's great, isn't it? So that's the end of this first video. I'm sorry there was so much chat in it. I thought I might get a bit further than this, but I'm going slowly on purpose because I want you to understand this. And obviously this won't be for people who can already whiz around on this thing. To be honest, if I'd have found a video like this when I first got this machine, I'd have been over the moon. You might just be interested to see how this device works on a very basic level. And believe me, these videos will be very basic, and hopefully that will be good for you. In the next video, we're going to be adding a bass sample. We're going to be doing some real-time recording, going to set the metronome up, and then we're going to really start understanding this concept of banks, parts, patterns and scenes. So thank you very much for watching this. If you got any value out of it, please give it a like. Consider subscribing to my channel. You might even be moved to make a donation on my website, which is www.daddylonglegs.com. That helps me carry on making these videos. And my website is quite interesting, it's very varied, I do lots of things on there, have a look at that. So like I said, thanks for watching, and you'll see me in the next video.